Welcome to Custom Homebuilders Solutions, also known as CHS, a job costing, full accounting, and profit management software designed specifically for the professional home builder. Well, hello there again. This is Carol King, the developer of Custom Homebuilders Solutions software. This is the second, I think, in a series of videos about when you initially get started with CHS, there's some setup steps that you need to do. And this one would be about setting up your company master. If you look under Setup and Help, the first thing is you might look at your CHS setup steps. Read these first things. Our previous video was about setting up user permissions, and now we're going to talk about setting up the company master. If you click on this window, you'll see videos about how to do that, and this particular video will be there behind the link for Setup Company Master. And then we're going to have a next video about upload your company logo. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. You can open your company master right here. I'm also going to show you that if you kind of know that it's called company something, you might start typing in the index to look for it, because there's a big index, and the company master will open. It will also have opened if you clicked it on those expanding menus over there. So here we are. Basically, the company master is to just set up some master information about your company, just a place to put it about your own company, and some things that CHS is going to use to give you various defaults and drop-ins as you work in the program. So these are the main master things that are needed. I'd like to first point out that you see the Save button up here and that it's dimmed. That's because we don't need to save anything. We haven't changed anything. But as soon as we change something, let me try putting an S on here and tabbing out of the field, you'll see that it's now highlighted and in red, alert, save, or cancel your edits. A lot of screens we don't have to do this, and some we do, but we want to make very sure that when you make your changes, you're sure about it, so we activate the save function here. If I don't want to save that, if I save it, it'll just save and all will go dim, or I can cancel my edits. Say, yes, I'd like to cancel my edits. This section here about company logo that will print on various reports that you have, we'll go over in the very next video. So let's start here on the left. Also notice how there's question mark buttons here that I'll be pointing to. You'll notice that the company name itself is dimmed. That's actually because this company name gets stored in our master files, and we need you to do this a special way rather than just typing here. So the way you change the company name, if you need to change it, the name that will be here is what you gave to us when you signed up for CHS. But you can use this little pencil edit icon, and you can type in a different name, and then this will become highlighted and you submit the change. I'm not going to do that right now because I'm happy with the name. And then if you want to see who has been changing the company name from something to something, you can click that folder icon. It's telling you that a window is going to open for audit records. And after it opens, you can use a search button and put company name in the description field and submit the search. That's because the audit records for that say changed company name. So if I click OK, the big audit table is going to open that relates somewhat. Need to put company name and description field in the search, it says up here. So if I put search, and then this is the description field over here. There's lots of things you can search the audit table by. But if I put company name and then I submit search, you're going to see that over here actually is where you can see that description says change company name, change company name. And you can see times where I was changing, just playing with it, changing from Roberts Custom Homes LLC to Roberts Custom Homes, and then I was just playing with it. It'll show you who and when they changed that company name. There's lots of audit records going on about all kinds of things that you changed, but that gives you a look-see at the audit table. And this question mark button tells you that the company name can only be changed after other things have been changed. So, you know, if I had changed this to Alpines, and then I wanted to do the pencil, it's going to tell me you're going to get involved in not being able to do it, so that's why that note is there. These fields are pretty self-explanatory. Your company's street address, zip code, phone number. There's a mask behind the phone number, so if I was typing a new one, the mask would be there. It's jumping, between the hyphens and the parentheses. And you put your company's email address. All of these things will print at the top of a lot of the reports in CHS, so think about what's going to be on your reports and what you'd like people to see. Now, the federal tax ID number for your company, given to your company by the IRS, it is sometimes referred to as employer ID. If you're a sole proprietor and do not have an employer ID number, put your Social Security number. This number will print on the 1099s that you're giving to your trades, basically. And type in any appropriate dividers for it, like hyphens, that are necessary, because the ID will appear on any tax form exactly as it's seen here. If you have a state tax ID number, I think those are also printed on the 1099s. So enter it exactly as it should be on the tax form. And question mark button, this is for companies that are located in states that require state unemployment taxes to be paid. And enter the number exactly as it needs to be for any form that you might be using the state unemployment number. If you empty this field because you don't have an unemployment number or something, just put a 0 in it, because it will tell you it has to have something. If it's never going to be used on anything, it doesn't matter. So let's move on up over here. This default bank account, if you drop down right here, you're going to see things that are set up on your chart of account as cash accounts or bank accounts. In other words, accounts that you're going to be using when you print checks or post deposits. And you can set up a default bank account here. You can tell the program, when I'm printing checks, I want the bank account that I'm going to print the checks from to default. Now, the word default means it drops in there, but you can change it. But if this is this gives you an opportunity to select the most commonly used bank account so that it will drop in. And then if you're writing a check on another account, you can always change it when the screen opens to ask you for the bank account, the date, the check number, etc., whatever it is, when you're printing checks. You set up cash accounts. Actually, I'll just jump back to the main menu on your chart of accounts, which is right down here. We open the chart of accounts. This video is not about setting up chart of accounts for accounting, etc., but I'll just let you see on your chart of accounts, which are account numbers that you use in CHS for accounting. You'll see that there's check marks right here indicating that these are cash accounts. So when you edit it or when you add a new one, it's going to ask you if it is a cash account right here, and you can select yes or no, and that's how it gets marked as a cash account. And that's how the company master field right here knows to show you only those accounts. And also the drop down when you're it does let you select a 0 in case you don't want to have a default. If you do select a 0, it will, when you're printing checks, say you must select a cash account. But you could set your default to 0 if you always, because you're going to change checking account so much, you don't want to accidentally overlook that something dropped in there that you didn't pay attention to as a default. Then CHS Dynamic Systems Inc. for checks that you can order have designed checks to match 4 styles that I set up inside CHS, but I highly, highly recommend that of the 4 styles, you select Top Check 2. It's actually the one that's most similar, and if you have some QuickBooks checks, quite often the checks in CHS will pretty well fit if you select that you're using Top Check 2. Now that's a default also, so when you're printing checks, there is going to be a field there asking for what check style in case you're going between these styles for some reason. But normally you put your defaults here, so it'll just drop in so that you don't have to deal with it. When you call Dynamic Systems to order, say that you are a Custom Homebuilders Solutions customer, and like again, the best fit, the one that's worked the best for everybody with their various different printers and stuff, has been Top Check 2. And I have considered making that be the only one that we offer, just because it does so well. And here's some information about how to test the styles. Here's some steps for how to just test it by printing it on paper, holding it up to your checks, and see, how do you do it, the ordering information, etc. So moving on, the next section here is about current period. And these are some dates that you can set up, and it's controlled by you, not by CHS. CHS doesn't do anything about changing them, etc. It's so that the controller or the accountant in the company can make sure that certain entries, when you're entering like bills to pay or other various accounting entries, that they are within a certain range of dates. This quite often happens if you completely closed out a previous year and you don't want anybody typing any dates in the previous year. So quite often it might be from January 1st something of a year to December 31st. The reason you see mine like this is that actually I use mine like in January, say 2019, I probably set these. So I might still be wanting to do stuff for November and December of 2018. But if I accidentally type 2018 and put in a January date of 2018, I will get alerted. I can either get alerted and still be able to use a date outside of the period when I'm doing data entry, or I can set this to no and say don't allow any entries outside of these dates. So it's your choice. You can change this from yes to no. If you say yes, the user entering a date outside of the period will get a warning that they're entering something outside of the current period, but it will still allow them to enter that date. If you have no here, they'll get the warning and they'll be saying you will not be able to submit this if you don't change this date, basically. So that's how all of that works. And there's explanations about all of that here. And if you watch the videos about entering, there's my suggestion about the November 1 to October 31st of the next year. At some point in time, like I'm in August now, I could change my dates to the beginning of 2018 to the end. When you first get CHS, you quite often might put your balance forward date here, and you'll hear more about balance forwards when we get to the chart of accounts and what date you're choosing that you're setting up to start your books in CHS. And if you click this audit, you can see an audit of whoever came in here and changed this and what they changed it from and to, in case you have any interest in knowing how that happened. The next section about recognizing revenues in accounts receivable when it is posted. Recognize revenues when accounts receivable is posted. In other words, when you post a receivables invoice, and there's a question mark button here, when you post a receivables invoice, you might select something like sales or some sort of sales. Quite often custom home builders aren't using accounts receivable as heavy. They're doing draw requests. But if for accounting you are, and to stay on accrual, you would leave this checked because it will go ahead and post the entry over to whatever GL account you're telling it to post to when you do the receivables thing. If you uncheck it, it's basically going to sort of revert you to a cash basis and put it into an account like unrecognized receivables revenues and hold it there. And then when you post the deposit, it'll take it out of that and put it to sales. When you enter the invoice, you'll select sales, but CHS, if this is unchecked to not recognize revenues when accounts receivable is posted, it's going to do that little in-between thing to hold it, to post it to sales once you post the deposit. But discuss this more with your accountant. It will make more sense if that just totally blew your mind while I was describing that to you. Most of the time, this remains checked and you don't really do anything about it. It just behaves on an accrual basis of recognizing accounts receivable, which is what most people are on. And then the general liability insurance minimum has to do with the fact that your trades, quite often you have general liability insurance required from them, and then you have an auditor that comes in, and your insurance company will tell you for general liability insurance that a minimum of insurance is required from them for them to be considered covered by your insurance. So you tell it right here what that minimum is, and then when you set up the vendors or the trades, it'll ask if it's required that they have general liability, what their expiration date is, and what their amount is. If their amount is under the insurance audit reports that CHS very nicely produces for you, will be indicating that they were basically not insured and showing you that. and also giving you some warnings about it. So, and there's a question mark button talking about all of that here and about reading more information about it in the section for where you're setting up those trade contractors, etc. in CHS. So that's all I need to say right now about the company master. The very next video will be about uploading your company logo so that it will show up on reports nicely for you and so on. So please continue onwards, and thanks for watching.